Okay, for all of us today, we're on the Wednesday training webinar for the local chamber influencers group in this particular case. And we're identifying some cases of why you and when should you make the break from your 9 to 5 to a independent entrepreneurial situation. In other words, going out in business on your own. When do you decide when to do that? And so
Yeah,
today's training is going to be about that with our guest, Bob Minhas. Am I pronouncing that right, Bob? Is it
that's
Minhas?
good enough for me. Yes, Bob is the important part. That's really
All
what
right.
matters.
All right. So we got Bob right. All right. We're in good shape. So today, Bob is going to talk to us about that because he has a complete program about that, which he has talked with and has trained hundreds of people about this very same topic. And although he has some of the same questions come up all the time, he also has some unique answers, even though the question is the same at times. So
Hmm.
today I'm going to pretty much let Bob kind of just take over the reins entirely. And as
Hmm.
we move forward with our training, if any of you have any questions, simply I welcome you to ask, and I know Bob will welcome you to ask anything you want to
Hmm.
on this live training on Zoom. So, Bob, I'm turning you over to you. Let us find out when the best time to go out on your own and fly is. Go ahead, Bob.
I love it. Thank you. Thanks for having me again, Chris. I really love the conversation we had on Saturday. And I was really, I felt pretty spoiled that you said, "Hey, what are you doing Wednesday?" And I was like, "I'm totally wherever you tell me to be." So I appreciate that. It's a great topic today because I actually do get a lot of people who call or email and say, "I know I want to start my own thing." It's exactly what you just asked. I know I want to start my own thing, but I don't know when the right time is. I feel like it's now. I'm not sure if it's now. And so what's really interesting is sometimes I end up counseling on that question more than, okay, how do we do it? And over the years, not only from my personal experience of knowing, because I will tell you a little bit about my story. The first time I entered entrepreneurship, it was actually because I lost my job. So I was kind of forced into it. That's what we call forced entrepreneurship, when someone's laid off or let go and they kind of just figure it out as they go. And then the second round, when I had closed down the business, returned to government work, and then made the choice to leave. What I want to talk about today is all of the things that went through my head on how to do that, right? And knowing what those signs were. So the first one I always talk about is it's always critical based on health. And I know that seems like a no-brainer, but I mean a lot of people who are employed who don't realize the impact their employment is having on their health. And granted, we can talk about physical because you're sitting a lot, you're probably driving a lot. In some cases, there are people who literally at work have smoke breaks, but then when they go home, they don't even smoke. It's just sort of the social activity. So there's tons of physical health components to it. And granted, you might have health benefits, but health benefits aren't actually going to fix the issue that you have. So really thinking about sedentary work environments. So if you're in a work environment that's sedentary, where you're sitting all the time, you're not moving around on break, or even on the other extreme, right, Chris? On the other extreme, you might work in a very physically demanding environment. I get this with a lot of trades, actually. I get a lot of trades who whether they're carpenters or masonaries, they'll never make it past the age of 40 because their body has got all this wear and tear. And no matter how many health and safety meetings you have and how much health and safety training you have, it's wear and tear on your body. So the first thing is to always look at the physicality of your job and think about, is this something that I can keep doing for the next 5, 10, or 15 years? That's physical. When I talk about health, I also talk about mental. And this is where the magic is for a lot of people, because what they don't realize is, what's it actually doing to your mental health? We talk about the divorce rate in Canada and the US, and we often point to things like finances, and we talk to infidelity, and we point to a lot of other components around what leads to the breakdown of marriage. What we don't actually talk about is the stressors that happen from work. And I'm not trying to say your full-time job is the reason why your marriage broke up. But what happens is, over time, the stresses and the issues, or the unresolved anger, for lack of a better word, that you're experiencing at work, you're carrying that home, you're bringing that home. And keep in mind, if you're in a relationship and your spouse, your partner is also working full time. They may also be in a work environment that's not healthy mentally. So imagine two people coming home and they've got all these stresses that they're bringing home, and that just impacts their relationship. So think about it mentally. Is it impacting your personal relationships at home? Is it impacting your personal mental state where you're not seeing your kids a lot, or you're experiencing a lot of anger? Or on the other side, do you feel hopelessness and despair? I can't even tell you the amount of absenteeism, the increase in absenteeism we see in the workforce today because of mental health. But here's the thing is, not all work environments constitute mental health as a reason. So you hear people say, oh, I've got the flu, or I'm not feeling well, I pulled my back. 9 times out of 10 in my personal experience, it's because they're overwhelmed, or they're anxious, or they're depressed. So when you're saying to me, Bob, how do I know when it's ready to leave my job? Do a health inventory. Do a health inventory on where you are. Where are you physically? Like, are you grunting when you get out of the car? It's just something as simple as that. If you have a pickup truck, don't worry about it. But if you're getting out of the car and you're making that sound and you're hurting on your back, think about how many hours you're sitting sedentary and not getting physical activity. And you might say to me, well, I can resolve that by going to the gym and doing other stuff. That's completely true. But then think about the mental health aspect. If you're not spending a lot of time with your family and that's a stressor, going to the gym is also taking that away. So that's a huge, huge factor. Before anything else, money, opportunity, the first thing you need to think about. And by the way, I always encourage entrepreneurship, but if you're looking for another job, that's the other thing to consider as well, is if you're looking for new employment, what is that health impact? We don't measure that. In fact, I can tell you, I've worked with over 500 entrepreneurs in the last 4 years. Not a one of them in their business plan when they came to me had health as a line item in their business plan. Because even as entrepreneurs, we don't think about that aspect. So, when it comes to deciding when you're ready, do a health inventory, mental and physical. Think about, are you physically able, even if you just sit at a desk all day, are you physically able to keep doing this job for the next 5 to 10 years? And then on the other aspect, what's that mental impact? How is it actually hurting you in terms of your personal health and your personal mental health and the mental health of those of your family? That's my number one, Chris, right there. Right? So, let's look at some other factors as well. So when we talk about the health aspect,
I do have a question. Yeah,
that's what I was waiting for. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, the health part of it is actually extremely important. But yet, as an entrepreneur, and I'll just use myself as an example, and I know several of my associates around are similar. We work at home, right? We get out of bed and we go straight from the bed to the office, which is either around the corner or in the same room. It doesn't matter sometimes, right? And we sit and we work sometimes 8, 12 hours a day. And the only reason we get up is to go to the refrigerator. Or we go to
the bathroom, hopefully, Chris.
Okay. But yet, in the process, the physical activity is limited because we are extremely busy people in the work that we're doing, and we don't drive to the office, and we don't get out. The only driving we do sometimes is to drive a friend to somewhere, or go to the grocery store, or on the weekends maybe we go out with our friends. But the exercise and the health side is very important for the individual at-home entrepreneur. Have you talked to people about that?
100%. So it actually comes all down to habits and commitment. So when you say to me, Bob, I'm an entrepreneur, I roll out of bed and go to my computer, that's actually worse than having a full-time job. You might as well have stayed in full-time employment. Because what typically happens is, I always recommend to every entrepreneur, regardless of their business, whether it's home-based or based out, whatever it is, every entrepreneur should have a minimum 1 hour buffer between wake up and start of the workday, minimum. And in that minimum, there's a number of things that can happen. You could take time and have breakfast with your family. You could literally do an easy workout routine in 15 to 20 minutes. You could walk your dog, or go to the neighbors and say, hey, do you have a dog? I'll walk it. You need to have this 1 hour buffer, and it's not just for health reasons, Chris. It's also this idea of, when you roll out of bed and you start to work, believe it or not, you're actually not at your peak performance. When you first wake up, we have 30 minutes of theta sleeping stage, which means that we've just come out of slumber. A lot of parts of our mind are still firing in the theta stage, which is part of sleep, which is part of REM sleep. So if you jump on a computer, you're actually not in performance mode. You're actually in a mode where you're highly suggestible. And so what happens is, what's the first thing you do? You check your email. When you check your email, you're like, oh my God, I got to respond to this person. I got to get back to this person. I didn't do that. You immediately build stress. Immediately. And that doesn't work because, again, you would actually have less stress in that scenario if you just stayed at work. You need to have some kind of buffer in those habits. So I'll give you my example. When I get up, the first thing I actually do is I know meditation's huge and really important, and I try it. I'm just not great at it. So the first thing I do is I actually make my bed and do any dishes. I do housework because I just need movement, right? I wish I could tell you, Chris, that I'm a guy that believes in meditation and journaling, and I do believe in it. I'm just not good at it. So I need to do what works for me. So when I roll out of bed, I actually do chores. That's exactly what's in my schedule in the morning. And that movement and that physicality, it actually makes me feel good, and I can start thinking about my day. If I have the kids, actually, then usually the start of my day is making breakfast with them and get them involved. You need to have that buffer. Now, that being said, Chris, you also need that buffer at the end of the day and on your lunch break. So when you break for lunch, it isn't just you leave your desk and go eat. When you break for lunch, what are the activities you're doing? So for me, making lunch is actually part of it. I try not to eat frozen food or takeout. I force myself to eat physically made food because the activity of movement is what actually gets my brain to sort of settle down out of work mode. And then when I'm having lunch, I might put on a YouTube video of something educational, something motivational. I don't turn on my phone. I don't bring my phone, my mobile device with me. And then when I'm getting back into work, I start prepping for that again. So you can see how at every stage of my day, I'm actually gearing back up and gearing back out. And that separation of, for lack of a better word, Chris, that separation of church and state is exactly what your body needs physically and mentally to be able to give peak performance in your workday. So then you work in the afternoon, you're done for you have to dedicate a time to finish your day. A lot of entrepreneurs, Chris, that work from home, they go to 7, 8, 9, 10 p.m. when they feel motivated to stop. You need to have a physical stop. And that being said, if you haven't completed your work for the day or you're not done for the day, you still need a physical stop. You still, whether 4:30 or 5, and then roll into what's your routine for making your dinner, doing your dinner. After your dinner, if you want to come back and work, I would never begrudge you, but you need that start, stop methodology when applying to your work from home schedule. And it's very disciplined. On your weekends, I highly, highly encourage you not to do administrative tasks on your weekends. So if you're saying, Bob, well, I'm an entrepreneur, I need to work on the weekends, I would rather you do work that's somewhat enjoyable or that gets you out, a networking event, a conference. Maybe you're actually doing personal development. I would actually ask you not to do anything on the weekend, but as entrepreneurs, you and I both know, Chris, it's hard for us to turn off. So that's what I commit to do. I dedicate the weekend to my kids. I make sure that I have something, not to keep me busy, but to keep me active. That's really the key. And so what that forces me to do is my Monday to Friday, my 9 to 5 hours, it forces me to be really specific about the work I need to do. It needs me, I get committed. I cut out the make busy tasks. I cut out the people that are time wasters. I get really, really hyper focused. So when I tell you I'm busy, I would never tell you I'm too busy, Chris, I can't keep up, because it took me a while, but I'm at a place where I'm only doing activities that are beneficial to the growth or development of my business. So that's what I would say right away.
Well, I think that's fantastic, because
Yeah.
I know everybody that's listening now live and will listen on the replay. That's extremely critical. But now, some people don't have the ability to plan for themselves. They're still working a full-time job. Now, let's talk about those guys.
I think it's difficult to control routines when your day is scheduled by someone else. When you work full time, I could tell you to get up early and go to the gym, and I could tell you to stay late and go for a walk. Realistically, we are at the behoovement of our full-time employers. So when it comes to people who are trying to decide to make that leap, and Chris, you and I talked about this on Saturday, the first thing I do is I never encourage them to leave their job right away. I actually encourage them to start building it as a side business and actually validating, is this going to work? Am I going to be able to find customers? But Chris, the most important thing, do I actually want to do this? Because like we talked about, how many people do you meet who says, oh, entrepreneurship is totally way better. I want that life. I want to be that. And the moment they start doing it, they realize, this isn't for me. How much easier is it to be able to figure that out while still being full-time employed, as opposed to leaving your job, figuring out it's not for you, and then trying to get back into full-time employment? So those that work full-time, what I ask them to do is when they're done their workday, they need to commit. They need to commit at least 1 or 2 hours to a business that they're developing or growing or building. And I know that sounds easier said than done, but it really is about commitment. If they're willing, if they really want to escape where they are right now, dedicating an hour is not much to ask for, just to prove and validate a business. If you think about it, if you dedicate an hour a week and let's say 4 hours every weekend, that's I hate mathing on the fly, 5, 8, 13 hours a week. In 13 hours a week, not only can you do some business development and find the right people, you can actually work with customers. You can actually do the work that you need to do. So that's my logic to people that work full time is I get it. You can't always, work your schedule around your job. So what I encourage you to do is in the evenings or when the times that, especially if you work shift work, if you have time that's your own, dedicate at least 1 hour of that time to building whatever it is you want to build and validating it that it's actually going to make you money and that you want to do it.
Well, I think that's fantastic, but yet I may work 2 hours every night. Let's just say I'm stupid and do it, or maybe I'm smart and do it 7 days a week. And that's 14 hours I put into my potential side hustle or future business. When it's back to that story. When do I know it's time to make a break?
So from that scenario, the decision becomes a financial one. So we talked about health. The next one becomes a financial one. So ideally, a lot of people, Chris, get involved in entrepreneurship, especially when they're working full time because they need to make more money. They know they're not getting a promotion at their job. Even if they apply for another job that pays more, it doesn't really pay a lot more. And what do all of us know from the full-time employment sector? The more you work, the more taxes you pay. It really is a sliding scale, right? The harder you work, the more you're paying out to taxes. It doesn't make sense. So, if you validated an idea and you're making that extra income that you want to make, it's time to make the leap when your revenue can cover your minimum expenses. I don't mean the expenses you have when you're working full time, your minimum expenses. So if you had to cut things out, eating out less, you're driving less, your fuel costs have gone down, what are some frills that you're willing to give up? What is the minimum amount? Maybe it's just your mortgage, it's a couple of insurance payments, whatever it is. What is the minimum amount you need to make to be able to make those payments? The moment you can get your side business to get to that level, so maybe not replacing your full-time income at that level, to me, that's an okay time to make that leap. And if you have a partner or spouse that can mitigate some of that expense with their salary, that's the right time to do it. Don't do it when you think, oh, this feels good, this feels right. There's a lot of potential here. You need to have the actual money in the bank, and you need to have on an Excel sheet, on a piece of paper, your actual budget numbers, knowing what your minimum amount of money every month is to live. You need that. You absolutely need that. I also suggest, this is like a number one thing, but it really depends on other factors as well. Before you make that leap, you need to have at least 6 months of savings. I would love to know that 6 months of your expenses are saved somewhere on the side when you make that leap. So let's review. The idea here is that when you grow your business to meet your minimum expenses, and you have at least 6 months of those minimum expenses in the bank. So you see how that works, right? You've built your business to already replace those expenses. So that 6 months is just for emergencies. If you get sick, if you get hurt, you need to put winter tires on, whatever that factor comes up. So that's another deciding factor for me is when I talk to people is what's that financial number? What's your break-even number to be able to survive? And then ideally from there, Chris, once you've got more time in the day, you grow the business, right? You're not staying at that minimum expenditure.
So you have the money, let's say you saved up and you have that 6 months there, and you have this idea that will absolutely just cover the world and be viral immediately.
Yeah, okay. All right.
You talk to hundreds of people and you train hundreds of people. How do you train them to understand what is really viable and what is not? Because I have an old saying that, and I've started a number of businesses, all right? And I remember one business in particular that I was so excited about that I just knew it was the cat's meow. It was the thing to go. But I hung on to that cat way too long. I didn't know when to throw the cat out the window, so to speak. Yeah. And so it totally just took me right down because I stayed with it as it was going down, and I didn't know how to reverse it. How do you teach people how to understand what is right and what is wrong with their idea and their concept?
So, I have a process in place that I walk them through, but before the process, Chris, the first thing I tell them is they have to be detached from success of the idea. If you get excited and you love it and you're thinking this is going to be awesome, The moment you get personally invested at the idea stage, all is lost. Because you need that detachment to be able to say yes or no and make the decisions you need to move forward in that business. So I actually tell people, I know in the media, online, you'll always be told, follow your passions, follow your pursuits. It's very true. But you need to have a level of detachment from the idea until it's validated. And here's the process. So you've detached, and now we do what's called an idea validation process. So the first thing we do is we actually market research the idea, right? We look at, first of all, who else is doing this in the market right now? Not only who else is doing it well, but who else is doing it badly? And the ones that are doing it badly, can we actually improve on it? That becomes your market dominating position or your value proposition. You want to look at what is it that you could do differently if other people are already doing it. If you've got a really unique idea, I promise you somewhere someone has tried it. So what I usually also tell them to do is if they don't find anyone else doing it within their vicinity, literally in quotations, open quote, put what your idea is, close quote, in Google. And what you'll do is it'll actually search all of its indexed articles on anybody that's talked about your idea. Because what you really want to do is make sure if somebody else has done this, why are they not doing it anymore? Right? It's all about validating why this idea is going to work, or if it's actually going to work based on who's done it before. If no one's done it before and it's an innovative idea, you need to consider those factors. Then you need to figure out who's actually going to buy it, right? And so that comes from a different type of market research. The first kind we call secondary research. You're just looking at third-party sources. Who can tell me if this is a good or bad idea? And then the second one is primary research. That's actually talking to people that you think would best benefit from the idea, right? So if your idea is, I'm going to create a bookkeeping system that any small business owner can use that is automatic. All they have to do is take a snapshot of their invoice and it automatically does all the tracking and stuff. Okay, so who would benefit from that? Pardon me. So naturally you'd hear somebody say, well, all business owners. Not true. I can't even tell you that my 70-year-old mom would not use that kind of software. She'd be like, I don't trust it. It's the start to the Terminator and Skynet. I don't want to touch it. So you really, really got to figure out who's really going to benefit from your idea and then talk to them. Hey, Chris, I'm thinking about doing this idea. What do you think? Like, I feel like you're the kind of person that would benefit from doing this idea. What are all the things you love about it? What do you hate about it? And when you start getting those answers back, you learn two things. Number one, right away, you learn if it's a good idea, because not only are you hearing their answers, watch them emotionally, right? When someone hears a good idea, they're like, oh my God, Chris, that's an amazing idea. I love that idea. I would totally buy into that idea. But number two, they'll tell you how they would actually use that idea. So what you initially thought of how you're going to deliver this bookkeeping app may be totally different. Maybe they'll tell you, well, I wouldn't use it as an app, but I would totally buy it as a software on my desktop. So the primary market research is asking people if this idea is going to work. This is where you need detachment, Chris, because not everybody's going to love your idea, and you may come across articles that tell you it's a bad idea. This is where you need detachment, because if you hang on and say, well, that person's wrong or that person's stupid, they don't understand. This is pure research. It has nothing to do with emotion. And once you can prove to me and to yourself that this is an idea that has some merit and there are actually people that actually want to buy it, in most scenarios, in most ideas, I usually tell people start selling it. Start selling it. Don't worry about registering a business. Be mindful of laws and of insurance, right? Like, be mindful of what's your liability mitigation when you're doing this product or service, but start selling it. Start asking people for money. The true definition of a good idea is if people are giving you money. People will give you a lot of great answers. Chris, that's a great idea. I love it. Man, I would totally buy into that. But the moment you ask them for the money, if they say no, that's going to tell you. And if they say no, you don't have to quit. Ask them, what would it take? Hey, Chris, I know that you're not into it now, but what would it take for you to invest in an idea like this? Why would you buy this product or service? What would it take? And that sort of scenario of validating the idea, especially if you work full time, is a huge time saver. You're not going to lose $1 million of your own money. You're not going to lose a bunch of time. You're not going to get stressed and anxious and probably depressed because it's not working. You're following a very detached formula, right? Who else has done this idea? Who else has done it really well? Who else has done it really bad? Who would benefit from this idea? What do they think? And would they give me money? Those 6 factors in a process are all you need to at least to start to prove that this is a really good idea to pursue.
Well, I think that's fantastic, because it does just stabilize your thinking along the way.
Absolutely.
In my scenario I spoke with as we started, it's like I treated it like it was my baby, and I wasn't going to let my baby die, regardless of what everybody else said. It's the cutest baby in the world, and I don't care what you say, So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
but if I were to have validated in the 6 ways you just said, I would have known
yeah.
I was way off base, way off
Absolutely.
base.
And when I say detachment, Chris, it really is in the idea stage, right? So not to be crass, but it's the only example I could think of. But think of it like adopting a child. Those first 60 days, that child is not guaranteed to live with you, right? There's still a lot of things that are happening until the adoption papers are fully signed after 60 to 90 days. That's when that child is fully yours legally. That's when you start getting getting excited and protecting it and treating it like your own baby. It's that detachment that a lot of entrepreneurs or would-be entrepreneurs, Chris, so it's that lack of detachment where a lot of people falter before even their idea goes anywhere.
And that's true even for people who have had a business and have made a little money with it,
Yeah,
but that's not really enough to survive, so to speak, or to
yeah,
multiply. But they're making just enough to keep it exciting. But they're
yeah.
still not realizing it's time to get out, and that happens
You
too
know,
in all kinds of businesses.
100%. What they do, Chris, is they create a job for themselves. So they're stuck in the employee mentality, right? They're thinking, well, I'm making enough money to pay my bills. Well, that's how employees think, right? How entrepreneurs think is, I'm making enough money to pay my bills. How can I make more money so that I can start giving to my family? How can I make more money so that I can start spending less time in the business? How can I make more money so that when I retire and am physically unable to execute this business, I'm safe, right? That typically is what happens. We call those people, those are typically forced entrepreneurs, like I said earlier. They get forced out of a job. Their logic is I just need to make my bills and I'll do what I need to do. And you're right. And it's not even just letting go of the idea, Chris. Sometimes the detachment comes in, you have an idea and it's okay. It's just not good enough, right? To be able to look at it and say, how can I make this idea better every quarter, every year? That's really where true success comes from in entrepreneurship.
And just since you have worked with so many people, and
Yeah.
can you give me a really good example of someone who has had a legitimately good idea
Mm-hmm.
and went through the process and how they came out the other end? I know that you've had you get intimate with your people that you work with. I do know that you get very close to them. Tell me a little
Mm-hmm.
story about the one that had a great idea, and as you worked through the process, it came out good at the other end.
Yeah, so I more recently worked with somebody who wanted to develop an online community that was very specific to a particular demographic of mothers. And her logic was she works full time, and her logic was there wasn't a lot of community built around people that have different cultural backgrounds, so not just Caucasian, but maybe South Asian, East Asian, African American. But there also wasn't a lot of services available to women in the corporate workforce, right? When you work for these corporate. So she wanted to create an online community where these moms can come and access and get information, get support, get resources. But see, here's the thing, Chris. That's a beautiful idea. And so the idea itself is wonderful. How do you monetize that, right? So when you say to me you want to create a community like that, I love it. I think that's awesome. And I know before even I do any preliminary market research with my experience, that's a needed service for sure. But the question becomes, how do you monetize it? So our work together wasn't so much about the idea. She already had the idea. Our work together is, well, how do you make money from it? And what we did was, by going through the process, what we discovered was there was actually a market to talk to employers about how to welcome these moms back from maternity. Right. So here's the logic. They go on maternity. They're not getting a lot of support services. And it's not to say they couldn't access them, but quite frankly, when you come from a different cultural background, the level of support that you need or your expectation of that support is a bit different. And so you've got to convert yourself to how it works either in Canada or in the US. So the idea here is let's say you're PricewaterhouseCooper or some large brand, Coca-Cola. You've got an amazing, talented individual. She's gone on maternity leave. She's coming back. But you notice when she comes back that her performance isn't what it was before she left. Of course, she's got a new baby. There's a bit of sleep deprivation. She's not performing as much. And of course, in the long term, it's affecting your bottom line. So the logic is, how does this individual that I worked with, how does she go into HR and tell them how to create a work environment so that this person could actually become not only at the level that they were before, but even maybe improve? And, a lot of HR, it's still I should say in the executive level, in Canada anyway, it's still a fairly male-dominated industry in the executive levels of HR. So the idea is, how do we create an environment, or how can she teach them to create an environment that welcomes them back so they can do what's called a ramp up, right, Chris? So instead of from day one, here's your computer, get started, how do you ramp it up? Maybe the introduction is she starts at half days, right? So maybe she comes back in three weeks early, starts on half days to sort of ramp up and get reacclaimed again. There might be new staff, there might be new procedures. And then as she's ramping up and getting used to a schedule with her new baby, whatever that may be, how can she then get to that peak performance, and then how to continue from there? And that is an amazing idea for one main reason for me, Chris. I should say two. Number one, it helps a demographic of our community, of our population that needs that help. But number two, corporate training is a bountiful thing. I don't know any corporate trainer that makes $5 an hour, right? Corporate training, you're getting into the thousands of dollars of training. So imagine being able to side hustle and bring in 5-10K a month just by doing corporate training on the weekends, right? So that kind of surprised me, because initially the idea was how to create a community to help these women, which she did and is doing. But then how do we monetize it? Well, from all this knowledge that she's getting from the women in her group, she now takes that knowledge of what do they need, what do they struggle with, what do they need help with, goes to a large corporation, teaches them how to indoctrinate these women back to the workforce. And now really smart, intelligent women are being recruited by these bigger companies because they know when it comes time to have their first, second, or third child, they're still going to be able to be welcome back and perform at peak performance.
That is a fantastic story right there. And what
Excuse me.
I'm sure, is she still doing well? I assume she is at this point, right?
Yes, it's only a year in. So she's actually at the stage now where she's developing relationships to do more of these corporate trainings on the regular. So now she's looking at her income, and one of the things we often tell entrepreneurs, Chris, is to set goals. So she has a goal. When I hit this income, I can now leave my full-time employment.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
We have several people online live with us today, so I want to throw out any questions that anyone might have for Bob on the topic we're talking about today.
Sure.
Anyone like to throw in a question for Bob? And this isn't a trick the guest, but throw some questions at him. All right.
If there's no questions, I have a third way of how to know when it's ready to leave your job. But we can throw that in anytime you're ready.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Are we good?
All right, well, let's move on to that then.
Okay, I'll throw it in. Okay, so one of the other things that I often encourage entrepreneurs to understand is the idea of trending. And what I realized was, if you take that concept of trending, what's going to be popular in the next few months or what's going to be a needed service, and you apply that to your industry, if you can look at where you work full time and honestly believe in the next 2 to 3 years that your company will still be where it is, and that your job will still be relevant, and that there won't be sort of an influx of new entrants into your industry, that's when you know it might be time to leave. So let me review that. So if you look at your industry and you realize, Bob, I work in the taxi cab industry. Well, with Uber, you don't know how secure that job's going to be. It might be a good idea to start planning some kind of side business now, because you actually might get cut off. Number two, what's the influx of college students and university students coming into your industry? Are they producing more accountants? Are more lawyers getting produced? Because the more competitive your industry becomes, the harder it does become for you not only to stay employed, because, think about it, they can hire these students at a cheaper rate, but then to be able to find something new and extra as well. But then the third thing is, look at your industry as a whole. Is it a market that really even matters, right? Is your job going to be relevant? So you might work for Coca-Cola. I can't imagine Coca-Cola ever going out of business. Coca-Cola has an amazing line of products. But what if your job in Coca-Cola was something that let's be honest, replaced by robots? We hear that all the time. So what if your job was to manually put Coca-Cola cans into a box? They can find a robot to do that in the next 3 or 4 years. Look at auto assembly plants. You need to consider, what I should start building a side business right now so that I can start getting into, so I can have some kind of buffer as well. So you're ready to leave your job, or it's time to leave your job and start looking at entrepreneurship, when you look at the trends of your company that you work for, and there's no guarantee in the next year you'll have a job. That's the other thing to really consider. Always look at where your industry or where your company's industry is going to be in the next year, and always be mindful of that, because sometimes you don't even see it coming, Chris. I see a lot of forced entrepreneurs who didn't even have a clue that they were about to lose their job, right?
Well, we're so used to, or at least our previous generation were used to having jobs and retiring from the same company they started with.
Absolutely.
I know there are some folks that are online right now that had parents that may have started with the same job and retired from the same job all their lives. But
My dad,
those days are long gone.
my dad got his job the day I was born because my mom had the job and they didn't have maternity in those days. So he went to cover her. And then he had that job to the day he died. Like he never left, never questioned, was always there.
And that's one of the reasons that sometimes when we try to become entrepreneurs, the family
Mm-hmm.
doesn't understand because they say, well, how come you don't get a real job? And I think you and I have discussed this before, but it's a matter of the fact that they grew up in a different time and place.
Mm-hmm.
There are
Mm-hmm.
no full-time retire from the same company jobs anymore. I
Yeah.
don't know what the stats are. You probably do on how many times a person changes jobs in 10 years, especially in the first 10 years of their job world.
Yeah, I don't have statistics for the U.S. or Canada, but I can tell you generationally, for the generation you and I come from, we did that maybe once or twice. But in this new demographic, this new generation that we have with millennials and Gen Z, it's a common occurrence, right? So, and the idea is, a lot of people say they're lazy and they're not focused. Actually, what they're doing, Chris, they're leapfrogging to stay ahead of the curve. That's really what happens. Millennials bounce around, and Gen Z will do it as well because they can see the writing on the wall, and they need to get to another place before it's too late. So,
well, they're hedging their bets, and they're
100%,
always trying to have a plan B in their pocket.
100%.
And
Yeah.
I know that they seem to be smarter in the area of networking than I ever was too.
Well, we never had to network, Chris. When you and I were in the workforce, we didn't need to network. We had our job. We were good, right?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't matter. I had friends, but they weren't. It wasn't focused on someone who could help me later on if I needed a job. That was for sure.
Absolutely. The only networking you have to do is keep your boss happy. That was really the only networking we needed to do.
That's for sure. And
Good.
I know one person that does that all the time. That's the wizard, which is Rick up there. Rick, I know you've been around during this period of time where, your parents or whatever said, "Why don't you get a real job?" What are some of your experiences in that same regard?
Well, my parents, while they were alive, were extremely supportive of anything I did. I mean, they had great confidence in me. But I do want to take a step back, Bob, and I love your three-step approach. And I sort of agree with you that the middle step, which is the evaluating of it with a non-personalization, taking yourself out of the equation, is very difficult to do.
Yeah.
I've learned those three steps in a very meaning the same things, but I like to call them the three C's.
Okay.
First, you're in the creative stage.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're in the critique stage.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't remove yourself from that personal, love, it's going to work, there's a good chance it might not.
Yeah.
And once you work through that, then you're in your crusade stage.
Love it. That's great. Yeah, you're absolutely right. 100%. That's a really great way of summarizing it.
And again, that middle stage of that, you just absolutely falling in love with it and not taking it out, not necessarily saying to market, but okay, what do you believe are the problems? Is this something that's going to work from your perspective? And don't stop there. Go to 3, 4, 5, 10 different people, even go online to see if that's something that has worked, hasn't worked, failed, succeeded. Doesn't mean that you'll fail or even succeed, but you need to explore. You need to be your worst critique. So that's my 2 cents today.
I love that. That's a really, really great point. It reminds me of, I don't know if you guys remember if you've ever dated a girl when you were in school and you're just in love with her, but your friends are like, listen, man, that is not a good person to be. And we're just so blinded by love, right? No, she's awesome. She's great. She's perfect. And then 3 months later, what happens, right? Or was that just me? That may have just been me.
That's a good one there. I like that. Yeah.
But great information, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Wizard. I appreciate it, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anyone else?
Does anybody else?
Yeah. Go for it, guys. Open mic. Go ahead.
And by the way, Chris, if people post questions after the fact on the replay, I'll watch the comments to answer them as well.
All right, that's good. That's good. Well, if we're close to wrapping up, I want you to go through your 6-point plan one more time for everyone.
Sorry, to make that change. So really what it comes down to when I talk to somebody who says, I really need to leave my job or I need to start something up, we cover 3 factors, right? We cover validating the idea, who your market is, and defining your offer. So in that 6 points, what we do is we look at that market research. So is this a good idea? Who's already done this idea? Who hasn't done this idea? Who's done it well and who's done it poorly? We look at primary research. So we talk to people that we think are the right people for this service or product that we want to sell, and they'll give us some feedback as well. And then the other factor we look at is what are we actually offering them, and that's a huge component of the 6-step plan. Because I'll give you a great example. You and I talked about this, I think, Chris, on Saturday. The other day, I had met a dentist, and I asked him, "What do you do?" And he says, "Well, I'm a dentist." And I'll say to him, "Well, yeah, but so are 6 other people on this main street. Doesn't really matter." So I'll ask him what you do. And he'll say, "Well, I clean teeth." And I said, "You're a liar. The hygienist cleans teeth. I know you're not cleaning teeth. What is it you do?" And the more you push them in this idea of what you're offering, the more they understand it. So his final answer was, I help people who are scared of the dentist keep their gums healthy. So you can see how going from I coach people on bookkeeping or I help people with accounting and getting really into that, what is my offer based on who I know can benefit from my idea and proving that my idea works, and people who have tried it have done this and who have not done well. You can see how getting really crystal clear on what they call a niche or niche, I think in the US they say, in that 6-step plan really helps them move forward with earning revenue right away. Every time I work with a client, Chris, what I want for them and from them is to start earning right away. I believe, and I said this earlier, I believe the best validation of an idea is if people are going to give you money for it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Bob, I see you're open. Do you have a question for Bob here?
Not a question. I just want to say thanks for thanks for opening up the content today. That really hit home on a couple of those. The work-life balance is something that's been on my mind and researching lately, and actually just started a second round on an Audible book all about the marketing evaluation. That's really, boy, I couldn't underemphasize that the need for that and the importance of that, because you can save yourself a whole lot of time, a whole lot of grief.
Yeah, and money.
And money. Time is money, so there you go.
You're absolutely right, Bob. That's a really, really great point. Yeah, I think health and wellness is a huge balance we need as entrepreneurs or employees. And don't get me, again, I said it before, I think meditation and journaling is great, but we're all from a generation where I need to physically move. I just need to physically move. And so for me, health and wellness is as simple as, like I said, getting sweaty, doing chores, shoveling the snow, cutting the grass. I do all that first thing in the morning. I have a manual mower because sometimes I get up early and I don't want to wake my neighbors. I manually hit that lawn.
You're a tough guy.
No, I hate it, but I have to do it. I wish I could say I enjoy it, but it's what I need to do, because if I just roll out and get on the computer, I am not at peak performance.
We've had a couple ask for your contact information.
Sure.
And maybe even you and Bob Mankin just asked the question about hook up and pursue his audiobook. Who knows, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'll just put my email there. Let's throw that in there. Make sure I got it right. Yes, that is my email. So you can definitely, anytime you're ready, Mr. Slicer, you're welcome to reach out to me. I'm happy to chat and get on a call, whatever works for you, for sure.
Okay. That is a unique email address. I'll have to tell you that. I quit at fireyourbossforgood.com. So,
yes, sir.
Now,
that being said, if you have any of the viewers who are watching now or on the replay, I also have a Facebook group. It's called Fire Your Boss for Good. And in that group, we take people just like everyone on this call who are trying to decide to leave, who have started their side business and are getting ready to leave, or who have left and then their first year and they're like, I can't figure this out. It's a free group. It's called, just look up Fire Your Boss for Good. I invite you all to come and join us and ask your questions. Take advantage of me, because I tell you, I love that group, because not only do I get to really give the support that I need to everyone that needs that help, but it's great market research for me. The more I learn from you guys what it is you need to understand, the more I can develop things and processes and courses to put into there for you. So I ask you all as a favor to me, actually, please join that group.
That's fantastic, and I'm sure it's a wealth of information. Is there anything you would like to say to the audience before we wrap up today?
I'm gonna do my rant like I did on Saturday, Chris, because I think it's really important. There is no wrong or right time to start, right? I mean, a lot of people who are in their 20s. I mean, a lot of people who are in their 60s. There is no wrong time to start a venture. All you really need to do is, if you're willing to do the work and you're willing to validate it, it doesn't really matter. So when I hear people say in their 50s and 60s, I'm too old, I can't do that, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm not actually going to teach you any new tricks. I'm simply going to show you how to make an idea work, and you're just going to do the same thing over and over. So I really, really want to get that out there. It is never too late or too soon to start down the road of entrepreneurship.
That's fantastic, and so encouraging too, because there are so many people who have started even at age 45, 50, 55. I fully remember when I first started my own company, it was because at age 30, it seemed I was too old to be hired for some reason. Everyone said I was overqualified. I think it's 32 maybe. And I said, well, okay, fine, I'll start my own company. And that was the only reason I started my first business.
Yeah.
It happens to all of us along the way. Bob, thank you so much for your information today.
Thank you.
And
thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. Thanks to all of you for making it out. And I know we started a bit late, so thank you all for sticking on.
Yeah, and for putting up with my error as far as the Zoom contact tab was concerned. All right, everybody, thank you so much. We will wrap up now for today's Wednesday training webinar. And I hope to see all of you next Wednesday at 3 p.m. on our regular training session, where we'll have some more great information both on your own business, starting a business, and how to grow your business through the use of the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you all, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.